Welcome to the Soft Scoop, where the headlines are soft, the stories are slower, and our mission is simple: to help you unwind, contemplate, and perhaps even drift into peaceful reflection. Tonight, we're exploring something rather fascinating in the world of celebrity culture: the profound power of absence. Picture the scene: the first Monday in May, 2025, Manhattan's Fifth Avenue. The steps of the Metropolitan Museum of Art transform into the world's most photographed red carpet. Camera flashes create a lightning storm against the twilight sky. Celebrities emerge from black SUVs like rare butterflies from chrysalises, each one more elaborately adorned than the last. This is the Met Gala, fashion's equivalent of the Super Bowl, the Oscars, and a royal coronation rolled into one spectacular evening. And yet, among all the carefully crafted entrances, the couture gowns, the avant-garde suits, the experimental headpieces and sculptural accessories, one particular butterfly remains conspicuously absent from the scene: Beyoncé Knowles Carter. For the 9th consecutive year, tonight we're going to explore something that might sound contradictory at first. How can absence be a form of presence? How does not showing up become more powerful than showing up? And specifically, what does it mean when one of the planet's most influential cultural figures consistently declines fashion's most prestigious invitation? This isn't just celebrity gossip, dear listeners. This is a masterclass in power dynamics, image control, and the evolving nature of fame in our digital age. To understand the significance of Beyoncé's absence, we first need to understand what she's absent from. The Met Gala isn't merely a party, it's a century-old institution. Founded in 1948, it serves as the primary fundraiser for the Metropolitan Museum of Art's Costume Institute. Each year, it coincides with the opening of a major fashion exhibition, setting both the theme and the dress code for attendees. For decades, it was an exclusive society event, old money in conversation with high culture. Relatively dignified, relatively private. But everything changed in the 1990s when Vogue editor-in-chief Anna Wintour took over as chairperson. Under Wintour's reign, the guest list expanded to include celebrities from every industry. The red carpet lengthened. Media coverage intensified. What was once a sophisticated charity event became a spectacle of competitive visibility. Today, a ticket costs $75,000. A table? Roughly $350,000. But the true currency isn't money, it's influence. Every invitation represents Anna Wintour's personal endorsement. Every seating arrangement is a physical manifestation of cultural hierarchy. The Met Gala isn't just attended, it's survived. Imagine for a moment the psychological experience of the red carpet. You wait in a line of black cars. Ahead of you, flashes, screams, the disembodied voices of reporters asking the same questions to everyone. Who are you wearing? What does this year's theme mean to you? When your moment arrives, you have approximately 30 seconds to make an impression that will be dissected for days, to convey personality through fabric, to remain composed while being visually consumed by millions. One misstep becomes a meme, one awkward answer becomes a headline, one unflattering angle becomes immortal. This is the gauntlet Beyoncé has chosen to sidestep. The 2025 Met Gala theme, Superfine Tailoring Black Style, was particularly significant, drawing inspiration from Monica L. Miller's groundbreaking 2009 book Slaves to Fashion, Black Dandyism, and the Styling of Black Diasporic Identity. The exhibition aimed to explore how Black communities have used fashion as both resistance and reclamation throughout history. The exhibition traced a fascinating lineage, from enslaved people who adapted cast-off garments into expressions of personhood, to Harlem Renaissance figures who wielded immaculate tailoring as political statement, to contemporary designers redefining luxury through a Black cultural lens. For the first time in Met Gala history, all 4 co-chairs were African-American cultural figures: Oscar-winning filmmaker Ava DuVernay, fashion designer Telfar Clemens, musician Pharrell Williams, and actress Lupita Nyong'o. Their selection wasn't merely symbolic, but substantive, each representing different facets of how Black creativity continues to transform global visual culture. The exhibition itself showcased over 2 centuries of fashion history. Rare garments worn by Frederick Douglass, whose precisely tailored suits were part of his abolitionist strategy. Zoot suits from the 1940s that became emblematic of resistance. Pieces from path-breaking designers like Patrick Kelly, Stephen Burrows, and Anne Lowe. And contemporary works from designers like Kirby Jean Raymond, Aurora James, and Pyre Moss. The theme wasn't just about clothes, it was about how style functions as what Miller calls a critical strategy for negotiating power. how fabric, cut, and adornment become tools for claiming space, authority, and humanity in societies that have historically denied all three to Black individuals. For someone like Beyoncé, whose work from Formation to Black is King to Cowboy Carter has consistently explored Black cultural reclamation through visual language, this theme seemed almost tailor-made. Here was an opportunity to join a conversation about fashion as racial politics, about adornment as ancestral tribute, about style as liberation technology. And yet, once again, she chose absence over attendance. Was this a missed opportunity, or was it something more strategic? To truly understand Beyoncé's relationship with the Met Gala, we need to look back at her history with the event. Between 2008 and 2016, Beyoncé attended the Met Gala 6 times. Each appearance marked a distinct phase in her relationship with fame. In 2008, she arrived with then-new husband Jay-Z. Both wore classic, relatively safe designs by Armani. This was Beyoncé still operating within the traditional celebrity playbook, attending industry events, giving interviews, playing by the established rules of fame. By 2012, something had shifted. She arrived late, very late, and solo. Her Givenchy gown, a sheer black creation with purple ombre feathers and a dramatic train, made headlines for its daring transparency and impeccable timing. She wasn't just attending the event, she was creating a moment within it. 2013 saw her as honorary chair of the gala. Her status was elevated from guest to host, from participant to authority. But it was 2014 and 2015 that truly showcased the transformation. In 2014, the infamous elevator incident between Jay-Z and Solange Knowles occurred after the Met Gala, turning what should have been a controlled publicity appearance into an unexpected vulnerability. Private conflict became public spectacle. Perhaps in response, 2015 saw Beyoncé arrive at the last possible moment in a nearly naked dress covered strategically in crystals. She posed, she conquered, and then she disappeared. 2016 marked her final appearance, a latex Givenchy gown that hugged every curve, paired with blonde hair and minimal jewelry. Simple, powerful, final. What happened after 2016? Lemonade happened, her most personal, political, and artistically ambitious work to date, an album that didn't just share her music but revealed her worldview, her pain, her ancestry, her vision. After Lemonade, something fundamental changed in how Beyoncé engaged with media. She stopped giving interviews almost entirely. Her social media became curated to perfection, visual statements rather than casual sharing. Album releases arrived without warning. Appearances became rare, strategic, and entirely on her terms. What we were witnessing wasn't a retreat from fame, but a reformation of it, a rejection of the traditional pathways to visibility in favor of something more controlled, more intentional, and ultimately more powerful. The Superfine Tailoring Black style theme created a particularly poignant absence for Beyoncé in 2025. Throughout her career, she has consistently engaged with similar themes that Monica L. Miller explores in her book: the politics of Black self-presentation, the power of sartorial codes, and the use of dress as both armor and art. Consider Formation, where antebellum Southern aesthetics are reclaimed and reimagined, or the militaristic Black Panther-inspired costumes of her 2016 Super Bowl performance, or the meticulous exploration of African diasporic adornment in Black is King, or most recently, the deliberate reclamation of Western and country aesthetics in Cowboy Carter, a genre whose Black origins have been systematically erased from mainstream cultural memory. Beyoncé has been engaging in the very conversation the 2025 Met Gala aimed to amplify: how Black Americans have used style as both subtle resistance and bold declaration throughout history. The exhibition specifically highlighted the concept of superfine, a term used in Black communities since the 19th century to describe impeccable dressing that exceeds mainstream standards. It's not just about looking good, it's about looking undeniable, looking so precise that one's humanity cannot be questioned, looking, as the vernacular goes, right. This connects directly to what cultural theorist Kobina Mercer has called the burden of representation, the way that for marginalized communities, personal appearance becomes political by default. When your very presence is contested, your presentation becomes a form of argument. Pharrell Williams, one of the gala's co-chairs, spoke directly to this during the event. Black style has always been about taking what you're given and transforming it into something that can't be ignored. Something that says, I am here in a world that sometimes wants you to disappear. Given Beyoncé's consistent exploration of these themes in her work, her absence from an event specifically centered on Black stylistic innovation created a fascinating paradox. Here was a celebration of precisely the visual language she has helped to evolve, and yet she remained apart from it. Perhaps this speaks to a different kind of politics, one where participation in even supportive institutional frameworks is still participation in institutions that have historically excluded Black creativity until it became profitable to include it. Or perhaps it points to something more practical, that by 2025, Beyoncé had simply outgrown the need for institutional endorsement of any kind, even when that institution was momentarily aligned with her own artistic concerns. Let's talk economics for a moment. Not of money, but of attention. In today's media landscape, attention is the most precious commodity. We're bombarded with content from all directions. Social media feeds, streaming platforms, podcasts, newsletters, 24-hour news cycles. Our cognitive bandwidth is finite, yet the content competing for it is infinite. Within this attention economy, scarcity creates value. Consider the traditional celebrity approach: constant visibility, red carpet appearances, talk show circuits, magazine covers, social media presence, brand partnerships, reality shows. The underlying belief is that to remain relevant, one must remain seen. But this approach has diminishing returns. Oversaturation leads to fatigue. Familiarity can breed, if not contempt, then certainly indifference. Beyoncé has inverted this model. By limiting her public appearances, controlling her media output, and selecting only the most strategic moments for visibility, she has created artificial scarcity around her presence. When she does appear and when she does speak, the impact is magnified precisely because it happens so rarely. Her absence from the Met Gala isn't just a personal preference, it's a business strategy. Think about it this way. If Beyoncé attended the Met Gala, she would be one story among dozens that night. Her dress would be compared to others. Her hair, her makeup, her accessories, all would be ranked and rated alongside her peers. But by not attending, she becomes a story in absentia. Why isn't Beyoncé here becomes its own headline. Her absence creates speculation, theorizing, and, crucially, continued conversation about her even when she's not present. Her physical absence ensures her symbolic presence. This strategy extends far beyond the Met Gala. Beyoncé rarely attends award shows unless she's specifically nominated in major categories. She doesn't participate in the standard press junkets for her projects. She doesn't explain her art. She releases it and allows audiences to interpret. In 2013, she released her self-titled visual album without any prior announcement. No singles, no interviews, no traditional marketing campaign. The music industry was forced to adapt to her rhythm rather than the other way around. This approach has been so successful that it's been adopted by other major artists. The surprise album drop, the visual album, the reduction in traditional press engagement, these have all become strategies for artists seeking to maintain control over their narrative. But few can execute it with Beyoncé's precision, because this approach requires something most celebrities lack: patience. What makes Beyoncé's absence from the Superfine Met Gala particularly significant is that she hasn't been silent on the themes it explored. Rather, she's been having that conversation on her own platforms, in her own way, without institutional mediation. Take her 2018 Vogue September issue cover story, where she explicitly connected fashion to ancestry. I researched my ancestry recently and learned that I come from a slave owner who fell in love with and married a slave. I had to process that revelation over time. I questioned what it meant and tried to put it into perspective. I now believe it's why God blessed me with my twins. Male and female energy was able to coexist and grow in my blood for the first time. The cover itself, shot by Tyler Mitchell, the first Black photographer to shoot a Vogue cover in the magazine's history, was a statement about who gets to capture Black beauty, who gets to frame Black stories. Or consider her creative direction for Ivy Park, her athleisure line. Rather than simply lending her name to a fashion brand, she created visual campaigns that featured diverse Black bodies in settings that ranged from urban landscapes to surreal Afrofuturistic environments. The clothing wasn't just clothing, it was part of an expanded universe of Black creativity. Most recently with Cowboy Carter, she didn't just adopt country aesthetics, she excavated and highlighted their Black origins. The album's visual language referenced Black cowboys, rodeo culture, and the often erased Black presence in American Western mythology. This wasn't just style, it was historical reclamation dressed as contemporary fashion. In each case, Beyoncé wasn't waiting for fashion institutions to create space for these conversations. She was creating her own platforms, her own frameworks, her own context. This approach resonates deeply with what Monica L. Miller describes in Slaves to Fashion as the rhetoric of clothing. The way that, for Black communities historically denied voice, dress becomes a form of speech. A way to articulate identity, aspiration, resistance, and belonging without requiring permission or approval. By 2025, perhaps Beyoncé had simply concluded that her absence from spaces like the Met Gala, even when they were ostensibly aligned with her interests, was more powerful than her presence would be. That she could better honor the legacy of Black style innovation by continuing to create her own contexts rather than appearing within institutional ones, no matter how momentarily progressive those institutions might become. The Met Gala of 2025 exists in a media environment unrecognizable from even a decade ago. Today, the event isn't just covered by traditional fashion magazines and entertainment shows. It's live streamed, it's live tweeted, it's TikToked, Instagrammed, and memed in real time. Every moment is captured from multiple angles, dissected instantaneously, and distributed globally within seconds. There is no such thing as a private public appearance anymore. For celebrities of previous generations, image control meant having a good publicist, developing relationships with friendly journalists, and occasionally killing unflattering stories. Today, image control requires something much more sophisticated: narrative architecture. Beyoncé has mastered this architecture. Consider her 2018 Coachella performance, affectionately renamed Beychella by fans. Rather than simply performing at the festival, she transformed it into a celebration of historically Black colleges and universities. She brought cultural specificity to a historically white space. She didn't just entertain, she educated. The performance was later released as Homecoming on Netflix, a documentary she directed, produced, and narrated herself. The narrative wasn't shaped by entertainment journalists or music critics, it was shaped by Beyoncé. Or consider her 2020 visual album Black is King, released directly to Disney+. No press tour, no explanatory interviews, just the work itself presented exactly as she intended. Most recently, her 2024 album Cowboy Carter reclaimed country music's Black roots while expanding the genre's boundaries. The visuals, the messaging, the rollout, all meticulously controlled. In each of these projects, Beyoncé wasn't just creating art, she was creating controlled environments for that art to exist within, ecosystems of meaning that didn't require external validation or interpretation. This is what makes the Met Gala fundamentally incompatible with Beyoncé's current approach to fame. The event, by its very nature, places power in the hands of others: Anna Wintour, who controls the invitation, the designer, who creates the look, the photographers, who capture the images, the commentators, who interpret the meaning. It's a surrender of narrative control that Beyoncé is no longer willing to make. The Superfine theme represented an institutional acknowledgement of something Black communities have long understood. That style is never just style when your very humanity has been historically contested. It becomes strategy, it becomes speech, it becomes survival. The exhibition traced how Black Americans used clothing to assert personhood in a society that denied it to them. From enslaved people who maintained dignity through whatever small sartorial choices were available, to Frederick Douglass using his impeccable appearance as abolitionist argument, to Harlem Renaissance figures whose dandyism challenged racist stereotypes, to the Black Panthers' deliberate uniformity, to hip-hop's luxury appropriations, each representing tactical uses of appearance. The historian Robin D.G. Kelly terms this stylistic resistance, the way marginalized communities use appearance as both shield and sword in hostile environments. This isn't vanity or materialism, it's negotiation with power using the tools at hand. What made the 2025 exhibition particularly groundbreaking was its situating of Black style innovation, not as peripheral to American fashion, but central to it. As co-chair Ava DuVernay noted during the event, American style doesn't exist without Black style, full stop. What we're celebrating tonight isn't a subculture, it's the culture. The exhibition itself was divided into historical eras, beginning with rare 19th century garments and photographs showing how freed Black Americans used dress to claim citizenship visually when it was legally precarious. It moved through the Harlem Renaissance, Civil Rights era, Black Power movement, hip-hop's emergence, and into contemporary fashion, showcasing how each generation has used clothing to articulate changing relationships to American society. A particularly powerful section explored what curator Darren Walker called Sunday Best, the tradition of extreme formality in Black church attire as both community bonding and public dignity strategy. Another examined how contemporary Black designers like Telfar Clemens, Kirby Jean Raymond, and Aurora James are challenging luxury's historically white gatekeeping. For an artist like Beyoncé, whose Renaissance World Tour costumes had featured collaborations with both established fashion houses and emerging Black designers, this theme offered a natural alignment with her own practice of using fashion as cultural commentary. Yet her absence spoke volumes. Perhaps it suggested that while institutions like the Metropolitan Museum might now acknowledge Black style's centrality, true cultural power lies in building independent platforms rather than accepting invitations to momentarily inclusive traditional ones. When Beyoncé wore a crystal-encrusted cowboy hat to the Grammys in 2023, signaling her country music turn long before Cowboy Carter was announced, she demonstrated how she prefers to communicate, through carefully staged visual moments of her own design, rather than participation in themed events designed by others. There's a fascinating psychological dimension to all of this. In social dynamics, we often associate power with action, with doing. The person speaking is presumed to have more power than the person listening. The person moving commands more attention than the person still. But there's another kind of power, the power of restraint, the power of the deliberately unseen. Think about it in conversational terms. The person who speaks constantly, who shares everything, who is always available, this person eventually exhausts their social capital. But the person who speaks rarely, who reveals themselves gradually, who maintains some measure of mystery, this person retains a certain gravity. People lean in to hear them when they do choose to speak. Beyoncé has applied this principle to celebrity on a massive scale. Consider how she handled her self-titled album release in 2013. No warning, no lead singles, just 14 songs and 17 videos appearing simultaneously in the middle of the night. The world woke up to Beyoncé, not the other way around. Or consider her pregnancy announcements, both carefully staged photographs released on her own terms, breaking Instagram records and setting the visual tone for how her motherhood would be presented. These aren't just marketing decisions, they're exercises in power. They establish who sets the pace of the conversation, who determines when and how information is shared. By removing herself from environments she cannot fully control, like the Met Gala, Beyoncé ensures that when we do see her, it's exactly as she intends to be seen. This isn't to suggest that Beyoncé is calculating or cold, rather it speaks to an artist who understands her worth and refuses to dilute it through overexposure. It's worth noting that when Beyoncé does make public appearances, they're often tied to causes greater than herself. Her rare interviews typically connect to philanthropic work. Her performances often carry cultural or political significance beyond entertainment. She uses her carefully managed visibility for maximum impact, both artistic and social. As we consider Beyoncé's relationship with the Met Gala, or rather her lack of relationship with it, we might also consider what it tells us about the future of celebrity culture. The traditional pathways to fame are rapidly changing. Social media has democratized visibility. Streaming has fragmented audiences. The boundaries between A-list and influencer grow increasingly blurred. In this evolving landscape, perhaps Beyoncé's approach signals a new kind of fame, one less dependent on constant visibility and more focused on meaningful impact when visibility does occur. We're seeing early signs of this shift among other major artists. Frank Ocean's rare appearances, Kendrick Lamar's controlled messaging. Even Taylor Swift, despite her seemingly open relationship with fans, carefully orchestrates what aspects of her life become public. The celebrities who will thrive in the coming decades won't be those who chase every spotlight, but those who create their own light sources. Those who understand that in a world of infinite content, curation becomes the ultimate luxury. So when we look at those Met Gala steps and note Beyoncé's absence, we're not witnessing a star who has faded. We're witnessing a star who has evolved beyond the traditional markers of status in her industry. She doesn't need the Met Gala to maintain her cultural relevance, but perhaps increasingly, the Met Gala needs stars like her to maintain its own. As our exploration draws to a close, let's return to this year's Met Gala theme, Superfine Tailoring Black Style. The irony isn't lost on us. In refusing to attend an event centered around personal expression through fashion, Beyoncé has expressed something profound about her personhood, about her values, about her understanding of power and presence in public life. She has, in essence, tailored absence itself to fit her perfectly. In a world that demands constant connectivity, that mistakes visibility for value, that conflates attention with worth, there is something revolutionary about choosing silence, about selecting your moments, about determining when and how you'll engage with the machinery of fame. Beyoncé hasn't attended the Met Gala since 2016, and yet 9 years later, we're still talking about her in relation to it, still feeling the weight of her absence, still speculating about what it means. That's not just celebrity, that's alchemy. The transformation of absence into presence, of silence into statement, of restraint into power. You've been listening to The Soft Scoop, where we find depth in the quiet spaces between headlines. Until next time, rest well.